Hello guys. Okay, so this is the second part of question 11, second part. So I did one part in one video and I did this stuff and now I'm going to compute this thing. So in a competition, a player has 3 darts to throw on each turn. So we have a turn and that consists of 3 darts. So we're gonna throw 3 darts. Oh, 3 darts. A point is scored if a player throws all 3 darts to land within a central area around 0 or O. So a point, we got a point, my pen is not working, when all 3 darts fall within a certain area, okay? Within a certain area. When Arian throws a dart, the probability that it lands within this area is 0.8143. So the probability of throwing an area is 0.8143. Okay, find the probability that Arian does not score a point on a turn of 3 darts. So let's first calculate the probability to score a point, and then we're gonna do 1 minus. So the probability of scoring a point, my pen is not working, score a point. How do we score a point? Well, that is simply by having all the 3 darts within that area, right? And so we need the first dart to fall within that area, the second one, and the third one. And because all the throws are independent, it is simply the probability of falling within the area, that is for the first one, times the probability of falling within the area again, that's for the second one. That's the first dart, the second one, and then we're gonna multiply again by that probability, right? If we want all 3 darts to fall within the area, we need the first one to fall within the area, and then we do times, because everything needs to happen at the same time. The second one to fall in that area, and we want also. So when we have ands and they are independent, guys, we can simply multiply. So when we multiply these probabilities, we have ands, okay? So basically we've got 0.8143 times again 0.8143 times again 0.8143. So this is the probability to score a point, right? Where all 3 darts land within the area. So that is basically 0.8143 to the power 3. That is the probability. But now the question is, find the probability that Arian does not. So remember that if we have PA, this is the probability of A happening, PA with this accent will be not A. So we are now looking for the probability to not score, and that will simply be 1 minus the probability to score. Right? We always have that the complements of each other together are 1, because we either have that we score a point or we don't score a point. So together they must form 100% chance, right? So we can always say 1 minus. So we basically have 1 minus the probability to score a point. So that is 0.8143. 81, oh my pen, 8143 to the power 3. Yes, and that is 0.460. All right, so this is our question. C. Find the probability that Arian does not score a point. So make sure here that you understand what happens. First, you have to really understand what it means to score a point. Scoring a point, so it's really good to carefully read the question. Scoring a point is to have all three darts within an area. The probability of falling within the area is given. Because we have 3 darts that need to fall in that area, we have to multiply the first probability times the second times the third, because they are all independent, okay? So that's why we can do this. And because we do not want this, we don't want to score a point, we're simply going to say 1 minus, because 2 events that are complementary to points score a point or to not score a point, those together must be 100%. Okay, so that is the first one. Then, what's the last thing we have to do? In the competition, Ariane has 10 turns. Okay, so you may sense that we're going to talk about binomial, perhaps, when they start talking about turns of trials or a certain number of things happening. In the competition, Ariane has 10 turns. Okay, 10 turns. Each with 3 darts. So all have 3 darts. Okay. D. Find the probability that Ariane scores at least 5 points in the competition. So guys, now it's really good to recognize a binomial distribution. Again, binomial, right? If we have a binomial distribution, we can, for example, say y is binomially distributed. So we write it down like this, B and P. And then we've got, N is the number of trials. And P is the probability of success, right? Probability of success. So now we see here, find the probability that Ariane scores at least 5 points in the competition. So we have to recognize here as a binomial where we have 2 outcomes, remember? With binomial, we have 2 outcomes. We either have success or failure. Okay, and then we would calculate the number of successes. Okay, so here we want, for example, scores at least 5 points. So we want at least 5 successes. So what is the success here? The success here is to score a point. Score a point. That is the outcome of success, the event of success. Okay, and failure is to not score a point. Not score a point. Okay. So then we're looking for P, the probability of success. What is the probability of success? What is the probability to score a point? Have we done that before? Let me see. Yes, we did, because just before, find the probability that Ariane does not score a point. So we calculated not scoring a point, which was this. So scoring a point is the opposite of this, right? That will be 1 minus that value. Yes, so that will be 0.539949. This is the probability of scoring a point, because this was not scoring a point. This is score a point. Okay, so we found our probability of success. This is 0.5399. And again, how did we find this one? This was actually, so not scoring a point was 1 minus. So scoring a point was this. And that is actually this, right? We need the 3 darts to fall within the area. So this is the probability of scoring a point. Scoring a point was defined by having the 3 darts to fall within the area. Okay, so we have our probability of success. And then with binomial, we have to denote our y. So y is our number of successes. Number of successes. So that is actually number of points scored, right? And what are we looking at? We want, what's the question? Find the probability that Ariane scores at least 5 points. So what do we want actually? We want the probability of y being bigger or equal to 5. Do we agree? We want the number of points scored to be at least 5. Yes, very good. So indeed we have here y is np. So that is b. What is our n? How many trials do we have? We have 10 turns. So that is 10. And what is the probability of success? That is 0.5399. So our y is binomially distributed with this n and p. So this is quite simple. Now we're going to simply use the calculator. So this will be binomial. And now the question is, are we going to use PDF or are we going to use CDF? PDF is when we would have, we want exactly 3 points that are scored. And CDF is with a range. Okay, so now we're looking at a range because we want at least 5. So y could be 5, could be 6, could be 7, could be 8, could be 9, could be 10, because y is up to 10, right? We've got 10 trials, 10 turns. So the number of points scored can be max 10. So we're talking about a range. We are not going to do this individually. We could add the probability of y being equal to 5, to 6, to 7, all the way to 10. But we're not going to do that because we have our calculator who's going to do that for us. And we're going to simply use the CDF. So we're going to use CDF. Yeah, binomial CDF. Where we have n, p, lower bounds, and upper bounds. So our n again, so let's write it down, binomial CDF. So n is 10, so that's what you put in your calculator. Our p is 0.53, 0.5399. Lower bound is 5 and upper bound is 10. And be careful with the binomial. The lower bound, we need this. Okay? So suppose we would have had this. What's the probability of being bigger than 5? Then we would have written down y is bigger or equal to 6. And then we would have had lower bound is 6. Okay? So be careful with this one. With the normal distribution, it doesn't matter. But with the binomial, you have to be careful with your upper bound and lower bound. We need this. We need this one or this one. Okay? So we put this in our calculator. And then what comes out? The answer is 0.717. This is the answer. This is the answer. Find the probability that Ariane scores at least 5 points in the competition. Very good. Nice. Then, what is the second one? So that is this, D Okay, so my tablet doesn't work today. I don't know what happens. Find the probability that Ariane scores at least 5 points and less than 8 points. So again, if y is the number of points scored, we're simply going to write it down like this. We're going to say P of 5 bigger y 8. So basically, the number of points must be at least 5 and it must be less than 8 points. Yeah. Less also, it's not less or equal. So you see, we have to be careful here. It's less than 8. So it's this. So again, as I just said, you need this thing to plug in your calculator. So this basically means the probability of being bigger or equal to 5, but less than 8, so it's smaller or equal to 7. You see what we're doing here? That's important with binomial. So the upper bound will be 7 now. Okay, and then indeed you put it in the calculator, so that is binomial CDF, because again we have a range now. And then we have NP, lower bound, upper bound. So that's the same as we had. So N is 10, because we throw the darts 10 times, right? 10 turns. P is the same. This is the probability of success, 0.5399. And then lower bound is 5. And the upper bound, be careful here, it's 7. Okay, it's not 8. Again, because it has to be less than 8 points. It's not less or equal, so it is less or equal to 7. You see this? This is important. So the upper bound is 7. The calculator always wants to know what is our last value. Okay? So then your calculator computes it. So what it's going to do is simply going to do the probability of y being equal to 5 plus the probability of y being equal to 6 plus the probability of y being equal to 7. That's what your calculator is going to do. And what comes out? The answer is 0.628. Okay, nice. So that's the D2. That was this. So we go to the last question. They say, given that Ariane... Oh, let me check again with you guys. Given that Ariane scores at least 5 points, find the probability that Ariane scores less than 8 points. Okay, so what are we gonna do? Now be careful, guys. This often happens as the last question in binomial questions. They give you a conditional question. So again, this is D111. So conditional is with given. So when you hear, what happens with this thing? Given, okay? Given question. So when you hear given, you know that is conditional. Okay, so I really struggle with my tablet right now. I don't know what happens. Conditional probability. So, yeah. So with conditional probability, remember the formula? We have this, the probability that we have A given B. So this means given B is equal to the probability of A and B divided by the probability of B. Okay, so this is important. This means this means given, and this means and. So in words, it means if we are looking for the probability of something happening, an A, but given something else, given that B happens, we simply take the probability that both happen, so we have A and B, and we have to divide by the probability of the condition, of the thing that is given, okay? So that is how it works. So let's go back to our question. Given that Ariane scores at least, let's go back. Given that Ariane scores at least 5 points, find the probability that Ariane scores less than 8 points. So, where is it now? Yeah, it's here. So, B is the condition. B is the condition, given that Ariane scores at least 5. So that means the number of scores, which was Y, must be at least 5. So that means this. And find the probability that Ariane scores less than 8. So A is that Y, the number of points scored, must be less than 8. Okay, so how are we going to do that? So indeed, the probability, so now if we use this formula, the probability of scoring less than 8, given that Ariane scores at least 5, that looks like this, is equal to the probability of both happening, A and B. So we have Y must be smaller than A, 8, and it must be bigger or equal to 5. So that means basically that Y must be smaller than 8, and it must be bigger or equal to 5. Do we agree? So this means both together. This is A and B. So we have smaller than 8 and bigger or equal to 5. That's this probability, and we're going to divide by the condition, by Y being bigger or equal to 5. So we have this. All right, so now we just have to see, do we have these values already? Let's double check. I think we do, because we first calculated just before, find the probability that Ariane scores at least 5 points and less than 8. That's what we just did. That was 0.628. So that is this value. This is 0.628. And the probability of Y being bigger or equal to 5, we did that in D1. The probability that Ariane scores at least 5 points in the competition. And that was this value. This value, you see, the probability that Y is bigger or equal to 5. So we're gonna have this. This is 0.717. Okay, so if we now divide both things, we get 0.876. So guys, this is the probability. This is the probability that given that Ariane scores at least 5 points, the probability that Ariane scores less than 8. That's this probability. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit what we just did. The last bit, guys, is with the binomial. Why? Because we read here, in the competition, Ariane has 10 turns, each with 3 darts. Find the probability that Ariane scores at least 5 points in the competition. So you have to recognize a binomial here, that we're talking about a success and then a number of successes. So that's what we did. And so we denote the success at scoring a point And then we denote y, which is the number of successes. That's always the number of successes. So that's the number of points. And then we are interested in the probability that y is bigger or equal to 5. That's what we did. And then find the probability that Ariane scores at least 5 points and less than 8. So again, that's all in terms of y. We have this. Y is between 5 and 7. Because important here with the calculator, you don't want this, you want this kind of stuff. Okay, and then the last bit, given that Ariane scores at least 5 points, find the probability that Ariane scores less than 8. So when we have given blah, 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 then you have to be careful to use the conditional probability, and that is given by this formula. So the probability that A happens, an event A, given that B happens, it's written like this, given B, is the probability that A and B happen divided by the probability of B. So we denote the given part, the condition, that is B, that is given that Ariane scores at least 5 points, so Y must be at least 5. And A is find the probability that Ariane scores less than 8, so Y must be less than 8. And then we use the formula and we write it down like this. Okay, so I hope just practice a few times with exercises that we did, guys, because this is a little tricky. But if you get familiar with it, you should feel more at ease with these questions. The trick is really to recognize the conditional probability given, and you must see, okay, what is given? Given is the B, and then the thing that we're looking for is the A. Okay? Okay, that's it. This was the last part of question 11. See ya!